cheat sheet here in case I have a little brain fog as I'm going on. I'm so touched today to see all these faces that I love, my friends and my family, and I wanted to share a little bit of background. There's so much here, but I wanted to expand on the reasons for doing the show in the way that I did. Last fall, Rula Jones, the previous gallery director, invited me here to have an exhibition, and one of the first things she did in response to my art is, Carol, what do you think of the title Gaia? And I thought, I looked it up, and if you look it up, there's a Greek goddess of Gaia. It talks about Mother Earth and the spirit of Mother Earth. And I thought, gosh, this is really part of my journey. Nature has been something that has inspired me from the time that I was a very young child. And so I went with that, but I added that tagline, human experience through the lens of nature, because that is really what my work is about. And that's what I have been doing. And much of my work is just an expression of things that I have experienced in my life, watershed moments, things that have meant a lot to me. As a printmaker working in multiples, when I create a print or I start conceptualizing the idea of a print, the first thing I ask myself, does this image need to be a print? Will others be able to connect to it? Is there that common human connection to the work? And if that answer is yes, then I will proceed. I'm very content driven. I usually have a title for my work before I even begin. I thought this out. Images will swim around in my mind months, years before they actually become a print. Printmaking is one of those forms, especially lithography and intaglio, where there's a lot of image planning before it actually gets printed, before you start drawing or etching. And so I'd like to begin with how this all came together. First with the notion of Gaia. And when I first started thinking about this particular exhibition, I started by journaling. And one thing I knew is that I wanted to honor my siblings, my family, my mother and my father and my sisters. And then the next logical course was, I looked at my prints and said, oh my gosh, I've been telling the story of my life. It wasn't intentional, it was just a response. And so when I pulled together this collection and was kind of curating what I wanted to say, it broke down into several small collections under that theme of Gaia's nature and the spirit and what it has offered me all of my life. So to me, the exhibition begins inside Gallery 2 on the back wall with my earliest inspirations from my mother and from nature. Being out in nature, being able to explore, being able to be free, that foraging for plant specimens that I've been doing since I was a tiny little kid. And here I am, so many years later, I'm still foraging for plant specimens. I still love it. It still brings me so much joy and so much appreciation for nature and for what this earth gives us. So again, that title was perfect, and I really appreciate that insertion into the work. As you go around the room, there's backstories on the wall, and I do respect that some people don't want a backstory. They want to experience the art, they want to make up their own minds about what they see and feel and make their own personal connections. So you can choose to read the backstories, you can choose to read this journal that is here that really goes in depth and is very personal. But I want to respect it, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details about each of those prints. But in an overarching theme, there's my mother, those early inspirations. I talk about my childhood. I talk about how a tiny weed reminded me of the value of my marriage to my husband and the value of a relationship. My connections to nature, my appreciation for nature. Probably one of the most delicate things I talked about was death, and that's something we all experience, the loss of people in our lives. But in the end, my discussions about death, I think my final feeling is that it's another way to experience love. And really this exhibition, all of it was born out of love. Love for my life, love for my family, extreme passion for printmaking, and a love for nature. And so as I go through and I made all these images, that's what I kept in my mind. You know, what am I bringing? I wanted to bring beauty to the world, and I wanted to talk about delicate issues from a perspective of love. And as you go through, I talk about how nature healed me as I had to go through some of life's trials. And I talk about dreams and how these different plant specimens I've collected have really informed me. I didn't look for a plant specimen to talk to find out about my dream. It somehow spoke to me on some level. And perhaps it's because I'm looking. And as it finishes inside Gallery 2 with the chrysanthemum that you see on the wall, and really that is such a special print because it reminds me that despite life's trials, that I am still blessed. I can still live a very beautiful life. Every day is a new opportunity. And so that is such a powerful symbol in my life that I'm just so grateful for. So you get out of that room, you come out here, and behind me are prints that honor my brother, my mother, my father, my 5 sisters. And that really was incredibly important to me. And really the centerpiece of those feelings of that love is in this journal. It's very personal, and I felt coming out of the pandemic and having so many losses in our family that it was the perfect time to come back together and to heal. And I wanted you all to know how much I loved you and how remarkable I think you are. And so that was something I wanted to gift to all of my family members. The journal, I want to credit my father. He was a very colorful storyteller. All our lives, and when he had a captive audience, you were going to hear stories about his adventures growing up in the small coal mining town of Pennsylvania. And they were so wonderful. I really got to know him. I knew who he was. I knew that man. And it was through those stories, and my mother as well would share those stories. And I thought, wow, this is a really wonderful opportunity to create a journal that talks about this, and one day, long after this exhibition is forgotten, will become an heirloom for future generations to know these members of this family that they have never met. But they'll know parts of who they were. It doesn't discuss everything. There's so much. I have to write a journal about each one of them in great detail, but it's how they affected my heart over time and how I see them. So that's what this journal is about on an emotional level. It's also an offering to the viewer to be able to look at an original print, to be able to see it without the glass and the frame and to get that close and then to read the personal experience. I hope that will further possibilities of connection with other people. And that's what this is about, common human connection and starting those conversations and whatever that sparks in people as they experience that. After all the content, after all the emotion, I take you into the educational display, which talks about my passion for printmaking, the science behind it, the experimentation. 10 years ago, I went back to Montgomery College to study printmaking after taking an intaglio course in the 80s. And all my life, I just wanted to get back to intaglio, and it just didn't present. And then finally, life opened up, and I went back, and I learned it, and I was sold. That was it. That's what I was meant to do. And it's a dream come true, and I just want to share it with people. I hope it inspires young artists to look at this medium. It's not a well understood medium, and it brings me so much joy to be able to present that to everybody and to deepen the experience when you look at the prints and how you experience them. You see them in a new way, in a new light when you see processes involved. And then going into the administrative hallway, it's sort of where I began. It goes back to those earthly inspirations. It goes back to the specimens. And I never get tired of finding them, I never get tired of foraging them, manipulating them, doing things to them, and waiting for those messages, waiting for those things to come to me. It's become such a practice. I never get tired of it. I have hundreds of specimens, and I love them. I think they're treasures. And so that's the gist of how I work. That's how this exhibition came to be. It's about that journey and my life journey, my journey learning printmaking and becoming a printmaker, something that I always wanted to do.